Most people think that you need a ton of cash to buy companies. What if I told you you could build an entire acquisition team for free? In this video, I'll teach you exactly how you can build a rockstar team without spending a dime. So I figured this was an appropriate time to record a video because I'm currently in California. I'm here visiting one of my business partners, and it just kind of really reminds me just how important it is to have a team, to have partners, to have people supporting your mission. And so I wanted to record a video just, because I made videos in the past on this channel about why why buying a business is much better than starting one from scratch. I talked about how important it is to have a team. And I haven't really made a video about how exactly you could find a team. So I wanted to kind of do a little bit of a deep dive into that just because it's at the top of my mind right now. So to take a step back, if you're looking at buying a company, I've talked about this multiple times now. The first thing you should do is build a team, because the reality is it's teams that gets things done, right? They say if you want to go fast, go alone. But if you want to go far, go with the team. So before I start any business, the first thing I try to ascertain are who are the best people in this industry that I can get a hold of? Who are the best people that I can associate with? Who are the best people that can teach me what I need to know? And what I generally recommend people do is to form a board of directors. Now you might be thinking, what do you mean by that, right? When you think of board of directors, you think of maybe a nonprofit, you think of a public company or something, or you think of obviously well-run, sophisticated businesses. But if you're trying to buy a small business, a pizza shop, or buy a floral business, whatever that may be, why would you need a board of directors? So I'm going to go through, a few of the reasons why, I recommend it. Having a board, first and foremost, gives you perception and it gives you credibility. When people see that you have a board, they think you're further along in the game than you actually are. They size you up more than you actually are. Because the reality is, if you're just a startup or you're trying to buy a business and you're just an individual, you're going to be scrutinized. People are going to ask you, what do you know about running a business? Or, do you have the financial means to be able to afford something like this? If they see an entire team available, if they see you're one of 5 people or one of 10 people and you have a board of directors that are governing this business, a lot of questions that they might ask you, they simply don't. They naturally assume that this team wouldn't exist. You wouldn't be a part of it if you guys weren't professional, if you guys weren't serious, and if you guys didn't have the capability of actually getting this done. Whether it was the very first business I bought, which was a healthcare company, whether it was the plumbing company I bought a couple of months ago, or whether it's the air conditioning company that I'm under contract with right now, I don't know a single thing about any of these businesses. Healthcare's not my background. Home services isn't my background, but I've been able to successfully run and manage multiple companies in multiple industries that I know nothing about because I've been able to rely on the collective expertise of my team. And they're just my business partners, but I call them a board of directors. I formed a board because, again, for perception purposes, it looks really good from the outside looking in. It's a bit of an optics play, but it works. It's more than just optics. The reality is having a team de-risks what you're doing for multiple reasons. If you're going to make a major decision in the company, if you're going to make a decision that, we call it below the waterline, you make this decision, if you get it wrong, it could take the company down. You could rely on a team for this. You could rely on your partners. There are so many circumstances where I had a crossroads, where I had to make a hard decision in my business. Thank God I was not the only person that had to make that decision. I had a team, I had partners, I had mentors I could lean on, people that have been in my shoes and have successfully run these businesses. And I can call them up and say, hey man, I'm dealing with this problem. What do you think? And they could walk you through it. You have the collective expertise of a group. You don't have to rely on your limited expertise. You could de-risk your decision making. And you could make improved decisions by having people that have been there and done that and actually achieved the things that you're seeking to accomplish. And in the marketing world, they call it borrowed credibility. And the reality is, when I bought my first business, I was in my 20s. Again, I bought a healthcare company. It's a regulated business. You're dealing with the lives of seniors. Why would anybody sell their business to a young, 23-year-old? Well, the reality is when I showed up to buy that business, I had 2 people with gray hair with me. Just presumably the seller of that business. They just never asked me questions. They never asked me how old I was. They never asked me if I knew about the business. They never asked any of that stuff. They naturally thought I was on the same playing field as them. And so I was able to ride their coattails. I was able to basically leverage their success and their track record, and it became instantaneously mine because we did a joint venture. It is much easier to gain trust and credibility when you're able to leverage the fact that you had successful people next to you. It also helps from a financing perspective. When you go to a bank and you're asking for $1 million or $2 million to buy a business, what do you think looks better from an underwriting perspective? Just a single dipshit who's, 26 years old trying to buy a company and he's never run something before? Or a collective team of 5 or 6 individuals that might have 100 years of business experience between them? Or somebody, in my particular case, I'm I'm acquiring plumbing companies and air conditioning companies and, the home service trades. Well, two of my business partners built $50 million companies in this industry. That looks good from an underwriting perspective because I could talk about the success my partners had and the success that we're implementing today. I mean, I could talk in a very confident, very definitive manner where, hey, my business partners have accomplished this. We're looking to do it again. You could talk to them, here they are. It's infinitely better from an operational standpoint, from an optics standpoint, just for everything, have a team you can lean on versus you doing something individually. So anyway, enough about the benefits of it. How do you actually recruit a team? Let's get into that. By the way, if you're new here, I'm Elias. I own multiple businesses at the age of 24. I've worked for myself since I was 21. If you potentially have a deal that you're working on or potentially might need some help or coaching to kind of figure out how the hell this whole business acquisition process works, I do help a few select people. So if you reach out to me, my contact information is in the video description. Happy to have a conversation with anybody and see if there's any potential to collaborate. So first and foremost, how the hell do we actually find these people? Arguably, the best resource that exists on the planet is LinkedIn. I mean, people are there to do business. And specifically, there's a paid feature. It's like $100 a month, LinkedIn Sales Navigator. You have access to millions of people worldwide, and you can literally filter by age, location, geography, if they're an owner in a business. I mean, you could go down to microscopic. You could find somebody in a particular industry, in a particular city, in a certain, senior ranking in a company. You could find with pinpoint accuracy people. So for example, when I wanted to get into the trades, well, I figured, okay, I don't know a damn thing about the trades. Let me go find people that do. So I could look up my market. I could look up the city I'm in. I could look up for owners or directors or CEOs in any particular business. And I could go out and find profile after profile after profile of people that are very experienced. I did this with healthcare. I don't know anything about assisted living, but I was smart enough and I was capable enough to go out and find people who did. I found people that were executive directors of very large assisted living facilities. And if somebody could run, 100, 200, 300 unit assisted living facility, they were more than capable of helping me out and advising me with the acquisitions that I was like. If you don't know anything about finance or accounting, go find a CPA or an accountant that could help. If your business is really regulated, go find a lawyer who's very familiar with this business. If you don't know how to manage people, go find somebody who's run a very large business and has very tough-minded leadership capabilities. I mean, I naturally would take a look at myself and say, okay, what are my strengths? What are my weaknesses? And I'll focus on my strengths. I know how to market. I'm a sales and marketing guy. I could cold call, I can find deals, I can negotiate. But from an operational standpoint, I don't know healthcare, I don't know home services, I don't know any of this stuff. So I went out and found people that do know it. I'm not a lawyer. I found very good lawyers to support me. I don't know accounting. I found a very good finance person. So I found people that could augment the skills that I don't have. And again, LinkedIn is the easiest resource to find people. And to actually contact them, again, you could send messages through LinkedIn and people will respond to you. Best method, if you can nut up, is cold calling. There's a lot of resources available, especially if you're in the United States. usphonebook.com, Instant Checkmate, the Yellow Book. There's an online Yellow Book. You can put anybody's phone number in there, or anybody's name, I should say, and you can get their phone number, address, make case, email. A lot of people don't realize that stuff is free, accessible information. So in many cases, all my partners, I just looked them up, dialed them, and basically what I tell them is, say I'm looking to buy a med spa, and I find somebody on LinkedIn, and they have I could tell they've owned multiple med spas or they ran them. They're very experienced. I could call somebody and I say something to the effect of, hi, Mr. So-and-so. I'm looking to acquire and operate med spas. I understand that you're very experienced in this industry. If I were to offer you a healthy equity position in my company, would you be interested in a potential dialogue regarding, an advisory relationship or potential mentorship? And that's what I ask people. And that's how you ultimately hook them. You offer them a piece of the business. I think it's Mark Cuban who says, I'd rather own 60% of a watermelon than 100% of a grape. And the reality is you want to share the wealth with people. You want to cut people into the equity. And there's a book I love, Good to Great. It talks about it's more important who's on the bus than where the bus is going. I do not want to underestimate. Getting the right people is so important. And the way you really want to get them motivated, you cut them into the deal. There are many ways that you could buy a business with little to no money down. And even if you have to put money in, it is infinitely worth it to give up part of the deal, to give up part of the equity, and share it. The reality is, if you look at all of the mega wealthy people on the planet, whether it's Zuckerberg or Bezos or Warren Buffett or Elon, all these people, they don't own 100% of the companies. They don't even own 50% of the companies. In many cases, they own a very small percentage point. I think Bezos owns like 9 or 16% of Amazon. I mean, it's a small amount because they give away so much wealth. They give away so much equity. They share the wealth and they get people engaged. And so the way I was able to get all of my partners, I'd call people that are super experienced and super successful in my industry. And I'd say, hey, listen, I'm looking to do exactly what you've already accomplished. If we could all have equity and success, would you be interested in being involved in my deal? And you'd be surprised how many people say yes. And you'd be surprised how many people don't even care about the equity. They just want to see you succeed. But the reality is, if you call people and say, hey, I'll give you 5% or I'll give you 10% of my company, just show me what to do. Teach me. You don't have to pay them a salary. You don't have to pay them cash. You're giving them some equity in success. They don't actually get anything if you don't close the deal. You don't actually buy a company. I mean, nothing's happening. It's such a beautiful structure because you're ultimately, I would rather own 65% of something than 100% of nothing. So to me, it's easily the smartest thing I've ever done in my life is to share the business, to share equity, to find accomplished people that would be willing to help me accomplish my goals. But in the same time, they're benefiting from the equation. So anyway, this was just a quick rant. I mean, I just wanted to go into this for a bit because, again, I'm in California right now because I'm actually meeting with one of my business partners. I would not be able to do what I'm doing today if it was not for this business partner of mine. Basically took me under his wing, mentored me, taught me everything that I know about this business for a very cheap price of, I gave him 10%. And it's easily, giving away that 10% has made my 90% worth something. Because reality is I would not be able to grow and scale my company the way that I have. I would not be able to run it as efficiently, profitable organization I have if it wasn't for the decades of experience that I could have access to today just because somebody's involved in my deal. So again, if anybody has any particular questions, feel free to leave a comment or something. I'll answer it back. You need help with scripts or something like that, again, feel free to call me. I'm happy to help in any way that I can. Again, if you have a potential deal you're working on and want to run it by me, happy to help. I'm accessible. And if you want to watch any more videos like this, please, click somewhere here. I'm always making videos about, business or sales or whatever that may be. But appreciate you tuning in. See you in the next one.